On this episode of the Paltrocast, we're breaking format a bit. Last month, I had the pleasure of attending Chris Jericho's Rock and Wrestling Rager at Sea Part Deux, also known as the second Chris Jericho Cruise. Chris Jericho is not only a world-famous professional wrestler, but he's also the lead singer of the band Fozzy, the host of the Talk is Jericho podcast, the author of multiple best-selling books, an actor, and so forth. The Rock and Wrestling Rager is produced with specialty cruise company Sixth Man, is essentially bringing together over 2,000 cruisers from around the world for a mix of events related to wrestling, music, comedy, and other forms of entertainment. While I was on board, I had the pleasure of not only writing some articles about the cruise, but also interviewing some of the talent on board. First up is my interview with legendary journalist Dave Meltzer. While speaking with Dave after a taping of Wrestling Observer Live, his co-host Bryan Alvarez entered the room and we got him in on the chat. Not only did we talk about the cruise, but I learned how Dave and Bryan first met and what life is really like as a wrestling journalist, and also MMA journalists. Sort of a rare look behind the curtain with two busy and successful content creators. I'm here with the legendary Dave Meltzer on the Jericho Cruise. Dave, is this your first cruise of any sort?
The first cruise of my life, yes, and I'm having a wonderful time. It's fantastic here.
Everyone knows who you are on this cruise, for better or for worse. What is it in your life that you kind of realized that people knew who you were, not just the guy who did the newsletter?
That's like a gradual thing. In the last couple of years, I think when I had I don't know. When I bought my cell phone and then the guy freaked out that sold it to me, I thought that was like that was a kind of a weird random thing. Or when I went to the airport once and the guy who signs those things, and he like freaked out. You're not the wrestling Dave Meltzer. So I thought, I don't know if that's it, but those are the ones where out of nowhere. If it's on here, it's like it's wrestling fans. But when it's in real life, it's kind of surprising. But it happened more and more in the last. I think it's a combination of YouTube and the Young Bucks. I actually got it more when the Young Bucks were like growing the thing and they were like using my name a lot more. So in that period, it was actually like because I remember going to Hot Topic and everybody freaked out over seeing me there.
Right.
Your Uncle Dave. So a lot of it was the Uncle Dave stuff.
Well, when exactly did this become a career as opposed to just doing the newsletter for fun on the side? Because didn't you start off as a traditional sports journalist?
Yeah, so I tried to make it a career in '87, and I would say by '88 it was a solid career. The first year it was, everybody thought I made the most foolish choice because I couldn't do both anymore. I was killing myself doing the full-time sports writing and the wrestling. And I was making more money with the sports writing than the wrestling, but I was just like, I'm going to go for the wrestling. And I did. And 88 was I did well. And by 89 it was, whatever. It's worked. So it's, 88 is 32 years ago. So it's been tremendous.
Now, I'm not going to say that what you do for a living is a fun job. A lot of people are going to say that, but not realize that when you work in an entertainment kind of field, that the line gets blurred between your work and your fun, and therefore it becomes a confusing kind of mess. What is life for you outside of wrestling journalism?
I don't have a life outside of wrestling and MMA. I mean, that's the whole life other than my kids, So it'd be hanging out with my kids. I mean, that's pretty much it.
With you right now, right here, obviously you do the podcast in front of the crowd. In general, people are psyched to meet you. When you get home, is it going to be like a big transition kind of thing in that you're not going to be in front of crowds, you're back behind the computer?
It's not going to bother me at all. It's going to be hard, though, because I have a week's worth of news to catch up on. Because I'm out here, and I'm actually, to an extent, attempting to keep myself out of touch because I never do that.
Right.
So this is kind of like my vacation, even though it's a working vacation. So it's not, no. When I go back, I'll be ready to go back. It's like that's one of the reasons why I'm keeping myself away from the news this week, because it's like I want to be completely ready, because I know my next week, from Saturday until next Thursday is going to be very, very tough until I get back to the normal schedule.
So with doing those kinds of Q&As, do you find that the questions are the same questions that you get answered over and over and over again? Oh, no, you're well. I'd love to interview you too, man.
Sit here.
Leaped right in. I didn't know you were recording.
No problem.
Sorry.
No problem. Bryan has joined us, and this is an honor and a privilege right here. Cruise is going great for you as well?
Oh, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And is this your first cruise as well?
Of my life, yes.
Is that
I've been
on purpose?
On ferries.
I've been on ferries
when Dave
too.
went to my wedding, but this is the first cruise ship, the first real boat.
That's right.
I've been on.
That's right. The last one was I took a ferry boat to his wedding. Until
In Washington State?
Yes.
How did you two meet in the first place, by the way? I don't know if that's ever been established.
Well, we didn't meet until 2001, and
Yes.
you called me up on the phone one day, right?
No.
You faxed me.
I faxed you.
You faxed me, actually.
He had a spot on his 900 line, and my 900 line had just gone out of business. And so I faxed him and I said, "Do you need someone new on option 4?" And he goes, called me back and said, "Sure."
Yeah.
And then I did option 4, and then one day he called me to do IATA with him.
As a guest.
And that was it.
That was it, and then he stayed as guest for the whole run of the show.
Yes.
And then he started an audio website.
Yep, I started a website with a podcast, and we did that for 3 years.
So
for 3 years, I said, "Dave, come on board."
Yeah.
And for 3 years, Dave said, "I'm not coming on board."
Well, it wasn't quite like that,
And
but
then finally,
I called you up and I go,
I'm on board.
I go,
It was like the Jericho cruise. He came on board.
no, it's like one day, it was the night of the Anderson Silva, Dan Henderson fight.
It was UFC related.
Yes, Anderson Silva fought Dan Henderson, and I was sitting there and I was so exhausted, and I sat down to write a story when I was writing for Yahoo.
Sure.
It's like my brain was fried. I couldn't write, and it's like I can't go on like this. I can't do these daily updates 7 days a week. If I do it 4 days a week and Bryan does it 3 days a week, things would be so much better. And then we basically merged, and what a fantastic decision that was. That seriously changed both our lives, really.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, it was that was, of all the business decisions I've ever made in my life, that was like the greatest by far. And I had people arguing with me about it. It's like, I knew it was going to be good, but it's 3 times as good as 2 times as good as I expected.
Not 3, 2.
2 times.
2 times
Correct
as-
multiples
2 times
there.
as good as I
Yes.
expected.
Well, you guys are in the unique position of being content creators that are in an entertainment-oriented field. And I'm somebody who comes from the music business. And everybody in music is kind of shaking at the idea of, well, Spotify changed everything, and downloading changed everything, and now the merchandise and the publishing revenues where all the money is, and the meet and greets and all that. Are you guys optimistic about the future, or scared about the future, or both when it comes to earning a living from wrestling and MMA-related coverage?
I'm optimistic.
I'm not that concerned now. There were periods where I was, but they always turned out to be wrong because I remember people telling me in '95, it's like, because of the internet, you got about 3 years left. And then the other one was when WWE Network started, and it was just like, everyone's going to watch WWE Network and stop subscribing because that's going to be their service. And Bryan actually was the one, and I knew that we would be fine, but Bryan was the one who said that we're going to grow, great because of this. And essentially we did.
Yeah.
Although that wasn't the only reason, but that was one of the reasons. So far, we've been very lucky in the sense that as new technologies, whether it's Twitter or YouTube or whatever, have come on, it's all in the long run been a benefit to us. At some point, things will change, but hopefully we'll adapt because everything's different. Like if I just did the newsletter and nothing else now, I'd be done. Because the newsletter alone couldn't have done it anymore. The world changed. But we changed with it, so it worked out okay.
And is there anything that you see that you can do to grow the business, or do you just like what you're doing and keep to hold on to it?
Behind the scenes, at least, Dave is along for the ride on a lot of these things, but
Yeah.
we're always looking for whatever is new that we can implement. We were very late on video, but that was because the podcasting and everything, it was just like that's all we did.
Right.
But people were always asking about video, and I never saw why anybody would care to watch a podcast. But we started moving into video, and there's always some sort of new technology that's going to make doing what we do. Like 5 years ago, there's no way we're doing anything on this boat.
Right.
But now,
Yeah.
we've done shows every day on this boat. They're already on the internet, even though there is no internet here. I somehow got them on the internet.
Yeah, trying to
So-
text my wife right now, no luck.
Yeah, there's I'm always trying to find what can we do technologically so that we can do what we're doing easier, better, on a
effectively.
boat. Yeah, more effectively, whatever. So there's always something new coming out, and we're all trying to stay on top of that so that, someday your podcast is downloaded to your brain. I'm going to be right on top of the best way to get it into your brain.
Absolutely. So looking at where we are right here and the future and all that, one of the things that I absolutely love about you guys is that you're now totally accepted by the industry as a whole.
Not totally.
You don't think so?
No, well, we're accepted.
Accepted. But
Okay, you on an AEW cruise right now with
Yes.
WWE Hall of Famers on it.
Well, I don't know if they're supposed to be here, but they're here.
No, I mean, we're definitely accepted far more than before.
Yeah.
But it's not. Put it this way. I mean, I would say this, with the exception of probably WWE and New Japan. Everyone else now, I think, is probably equal to the level of where UFC was. Whereas before, I would say UFC was so far above everybody in pro wrestling and so far ahead. Now I think, like if it's Ring of Honor or if it's AEW for sure, yeah, I mean, it's no problem. It's just like UFC.
Like, it's not really sports, but all of these other wrestling organizations besides New Japan and WWE, I mean, they run everything like a sport. Like, we're here covering this event, and so we're given coverage like we're covering the Olympics or whatever. Mm-hmm. Whereas with WWE, you know, if I'm going to cover WWE, I buy my own ticket. Actually, I can get comps. I can get comps now.
No. And I've said this, WWE is much better than it was. But the one difference is so the difference is with WWE is there's still, when it comes to control of talent, access to talent.
Right.
They're still very different from everyone else. And New Japan is that way too.
Yes.
You know, whereas with like an AEW, nothing's an issue. With Ring of Honor, nothing would be an issue. They'll bend over backwards for us.
Impact is very easy as well.
Impact
MLW is great.
Yeah. Oh, MLW and Impact would be easy. Yeah. They're no problem. Yeah.
I'm surprised that you guys also have the trouble getting the WWE talent. I thought that it's once you reach a certain echelon of viewership that everyone says, "Hey, come on in."
Well, but the WWE.
And if you want me to cut this off the record, that's fine.
No. There's nothing off the record. No, WWE, I think there's still a stigma, and it's not like it. I wouldn't be surprised if it changed in the next year, but I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. But it's just, to me, the WWE, a lot of it is just like remnants of the past.
That's all it is.
And, you know, because the president actually it makes no sense whatsoever. But it's still remnants of the past, and it's Vince. You know, but it's all of them. It's like they have a certain way of doing things where they don't have to be as friendly to us. But I mean, they're not unfriendly, and it's like I text people and email people there constantly all the time, and they're fine. I mean, it's much better than it was 10 years ago, but it's still not at the UFC level or not the level that some of the other companies are.
Okay, so being mindful of your time here and ending on a positive damn note here. Things are good for you guys. Things are going to continue to be good. Hopefully we'll see you on the third Jericho cruise. But as two people who forged your own paths and have jobs that most people wish that they had, especially wrestling fans.
Not Monday night at 9.
People don't know. I don't think people realize that, like, how hard it is. I mean, you got to realize. I mean, you know, and both of us. I mean, it's like. You know, Monday night was 12:30. Then Bryan just had a daughter, so then it became 1.
Yep.
You know, and it's not the easiest thing in the world. But I mean, the one thing I'll say for Bryan, and it goes both ways, is that like we're very cognizant of the other person's life, and you know, if there's something, we'll rearrange as much as we can to make it work. If it's going to be later, fine. If it has to be earlier, we do our best. You know,
but it will still get done.
But yeah, it always gets done. Well, I think that I mean, it's going to sound stupid, but we're very, very, very cognizant of our readership and listenership. I mean, so much. Like when people are out here say stuff, I mean, we're not like take this stuff for granted. I mean, it's really important to us. And I'm like, when I'm writing, I'm like very cognizant of the readers, and I'm very driven, you know, to give them the best product I possibly can without killing over, so to speak.
So that said, as two guys that are entrepreneurs in the digital age, any last words for the kids?
The kids.
The kids. Depends on the kids. This is what I would say is read as much as you can. Read, I mean, and not just wrestling, but learn history, learn as much as you can. The more you read, the more you know, the better the edge you'll have. If you try to fake your way through it, you may get some lucky breaks, but in the end, the smart people will know that and know that you're fake.
Anything to add to that, Bryan?
No, just whatever it is that you want to do, just do the best you can and work harder than everybody else and try to be the best at it. Even if you're not, try every day to be the best at it. And that's it.
Paltrocast.
Next up is my interview with Frankie Kazarian. Not only has Frankie worked with just about every major wrestling company of the last 15 years, but he's also an accomplished musician. Beyond being one-third of former AEW Tag Team Champions SCU, Frankie is the bassist in the band Gutter Candy. I spoke with Frankie right after wrapping up my chat with the band Rubiks Cube, which you'll hear later in this podcast. Hopefully we'll be seeing Gutter Candy performing live on the next Jericho Cruise, but in the meantime, Frankie also holds the distinction of being the only wrestler besides Chris Jericho to have played music on the first and second Jericho Cruises. Everyone knows you're a world-famous wrestler. A lot of people who are big fans of you as a wrestler know that you're a musician. When did you start playing versus being a wrestler and training to be a wrestler?
I actually started playing bass guitar before I became a wrestler, before I began training pro wrestling. I got my first bass guitar when I was 17, 18, right after graduating high school, and my grandfather had given it to me, and I basically taught myself how to play, and became, started playing it for a couple years, and started to get decent at it, and then moved to Massachusetts to train to become a wrestler, and as I got busier wrestling, bass guitar was the first thing to kind of take the back seat. I always played it, but it would be a lot longer increments of time between when I play it. But I always did play it. And that was almost 22 years ago now. So now, fast forward several years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, me and some other buddies who had always been musicians started jamming, and I ended up started playing a lot more and more in the free time I had, and ended up joining 2 bands, and was kind of right back into the music scene. And now it's kind of something I could do on the side that I'm very passionate about. It's not pro wrestling, but very relatable to pro wrestling. So yeah, I'm trying to enjoy the best of both worlds. Chris Jericho set the bar pretty high in terms of being a top-notch wrestler and a top-notch musician, which he is both of those. Mm-hmm. So I'm just, I'm like the JV version of Jericho. Just trying to keep it alive, man.
And then, what were the gateway artists that made you want to pick up a guitar in the first place?
100% Guns N' Roses was my gateway band into the world of rock and heavy metal. And I was raised in a family where I was always listening to music. My dad constantly was playing the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and Jethro Tull and Frank Zappa. My mom was listening to Elvis and Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, and Patsy Cline. And just so I had all rock and country and classic rock, even some blues. And so as I got older, 5th grade, I discovered Guns N' Roses and never looked back. And through Guns N' Roses, a friend of mine who was a young metalhead at the time introduced me to Metallica. Metallica is my favorite band ever. And so through Metallica, I discovered their back catalog. I discovered a lot of early Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden and Blue Oyster Cult, Judas Priest, and just you name it, and the whole, new wave of British heavy metal. And just that was so 100% Guns N' Roses was my gateway band into the world of rock and metal.
Now, I'm a big Chinese democracy guy. Are you?
I'm a Chinese democracy guy. I won't say I'm a big Chinese democracy guy. I enjoyed the record. I, as a Guns N' Roses loyalist, was very much looking forward to it, and was kind of bummed that we had to wait that long. But I really enjoyed it, and actually I got to see them a couple years ago, and the fact that they play a couple of the songs from that album was really cool to see, like Slash and Duff playing those songs. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't think it was the success it should have been or could have been, but yeah.
And then it seems to me like 75% of wrestlers who are into music love the Misfits. Are you in that camp too?
I'm a Danzig. I'm more of a Danzig guy than I am a Misfits guy. I really got into Danzig and Rollins Band in high school.
Rollins Band. The Wait album?
One of my all-time favorite albums is the Wait album. So I was, and I kind of went into the back catalog of Misfit stuff through Glenn Danzig, but I actually prefer Danzig stuff and Sam Hain stuff. And for my high school, I was Rollins Band and Danzig were 2 of my absolute favorites. So yeah, I'm maybe a novice Misfits guy, but I enjoy some of their stuff. But yeah, I'm more of a Danzig guy. It's more that's straightforward metal as opposed to kind of like the punk.
Sure, and then bring it back to you here. Gutter Candy, I know, is your band. What's coming up for you in 2020 on the musical end?
Well, we usually play a couple local gigs every month. We actually got a gig coming up with the Whiskey in Hollywood, which is a world famous venue. We're playing there. We're opening for a band called Metalachi, which if you ever heard of them, it's
the metal mariachi
heavy
band.
metal mariachi band.
Yeah.
And we've played with those guys before, and they're great musicians. They're great showmen, great entertainers. So we're opening up for them at the Whiskey, which is kind of a bucket list thing for me, being an old rock and roll and metalhead. Getting to play at that venue is cool. So, we try to play as often as we can. My schedule dictates a lot of that. I'm very busy, and so we actually can't do as many gigs as I would like to, just because pro wrestling is what pays my bills, and that's my first love. But we're trying to get out there and gig as much as we can. We're working on putting a proper album out with 8 songs, originals, because we do play originals as well. So hopefully we'll get a lot more of that accomplished this year.
And do you have any endorsements, or is that something that's in the works?
Nothing yet. I mean, certainly something we'd all be open to. Certainly something I would be open to is a bass player that plays Schecter basses, and I've been.
I see Guild bass right there.
Yeah, I'm here in the Artist Lounge. Yeah, playing this Guild, this very nice Guild acoustic bass. If you're listening, representatives from Guild.
We'll tag them in the social media.
I really love the tone of this acoustic bass you're playing here. I would happily play it on stage live with Gutter Candy. So that's just. We're very much just we're still a bar band. We're just a rock and roll band. You'll see it at a club or a dive bar, but we love it. We have fun. We played some sizable gigs, but we're having fun. I'm trying to use the little celebrity I have to help get those guys organized, because they're all great musicians and guys that have worked really hard at trying to make music something more than just a hobby.
We saw you on the cruise last year.
Yeah.
How does this cruise compare to last year, and any highlights from this one?
This one is, I think that the fans are even more laid back. I know a lot of wrestlers and musicians had trepidations that fans would be mobbing them, and that's not the case at all. We're all just passengers on this thing. And since there's a lot of repeat cruise goers, a lot of people just saw us last year, so it's almost like we're old hat. So it's just kind of, what stood out for me is obviously taping Dynamite live from the cruise was really cool. Band-wise, I saw this band Rubix Cube last night, who I just saw you talking to, who were just outstanding. So good. And before that, the night before, I watched Killer Queens, which is the all-female Queen tribute.
They were great,
Dynamite. Very good, very good. And then Jericho has played two great shows, and he pulled Marco's stunt up there and sang Sunglasses at Night. So for me, it's the wrestling's one thing, but for me, I like to come in this and take in the music. I get to see wrestling live every week.
Yeah.
I get to see the best wrestling in the world live every week. It's not every week I get to see a Fozzy concert, or I get to see, like last year, a Corey Taylor acoustic set.
That was great.
Killer Queens, or Rubik's Cube, or Light the Torch. It's
or
really
Kick-Axe.
Cool. Or Kick-Axe, yeah, and I haven't seen Kick-Axe yet, so I gotta remedy that. So
Tonight,
so for
midnight.
for me, the highlight is watching Jericho's cover set last night, and just discovering new music and making new friends. Making new friends in the music world is always cool too.
So in closing, Frankie, any last words for the kids?
Kids, yes, don't become a pro wrestler or a musician. Do every other thing on earth except for those two things. For the kids, I'm going to assume you mean the fans that have supported us. That without you guys, there would be no me, both in the music world and the wrestling world. And keep pro wrestling alive, and keep listening to music in its purest form. Even if you just listen to it digital, just keep listening to music, because music is my life's blood, and I know there's a lot of people out there that like that. So please keep buying physical music too, because that's also very important to musicians and artists to generate revenue from that. And thanks for supporting any way you have.
Paltrocast.
Next up is part of my quick chat with Hall of Fame wrestler and DDPY founder Diamond Dallas Page. Last month, DDPY made a surprise return to the wrestling ring and wrestled a farewell match in AEW. This means that DDP technically wrestled matches in the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. We actually taped this one on the top deck of the ship while DDP was watching MJF wrestle a match. The Lexie he referred to in our chat is Lexy Nair from the AEW Control Center, who you will also hear on this podcast. Has there been a highlight for you on this cruise?
There's one particular highlight, because I think that it was super well-rounded from the matches that they've been able to put out there, the reaction I got from the people when we did the Jericho NWO. I'd say that was probably one of my highlights. The special highlight was being Eric Bischoff sharing a couple bottles of wine that we haven't done that in a decade. You know, where we just sat around and hung out, and then go and do the podcast with him right after. You know, actually the next day. So just really getting with people you haven't seen in a while. You know, is super good, and I love listening to Jericho, the band, and all the guys that they brought in here. So there isn't one particular, just one highlight. One of the best things is something that you can't print yet, which is about Lexie and what happened for her on this trip. You know, so to me, that's the highlight.
And then bringing it back to you here, the only wrestler who wrestled in the 70s, 80s, 90s, aughts, 10s, and 20s technically. Anything to say about that?
That was a special moment last Wednesday. Being able to get out there, and my main thing is not to get hurt.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Second thing is for it to look as good as it can look. And for it to gotten the reaction that it's gotten, where people talked about it for a straight week, and to be able to look like I never missed a step, you know, that was super special. And if that's the last thing I ever do, awesome. Oh, that was beautiful. But my first day in professional wrestling, I was working as a manager with the AWA, and I was managing Bad Company. We did 4 matches with the AWA in the Showboat Arena
in Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas, which was off the strip and was a dump. But that's where the AWA would have like 1,000, 2,500 people.
Uh-oh, MJF is interrupting us yet again.
And on the 4th match, we were going against the Guerreros. We're going against the Guerreros. And Pat and Paul were on the floor, and I was going over to help them up, and Mondo came off the top rope, and I was like, what the fuck? And landed on it. I had never seen that before. So that's game fucking of the 80 and 89, 88. Let me go back fucking 5 decades later, I'm going off the top rope.
Full circle.
Paltrocast.
Next up is my interview with 4 members of the band Rubiks Cube. Rubiks Cube is simply one of the best 80s tribute bands I've ever seen, if not the best, but there's so much more to the story than their greatness as performers. For starters, guitarist Steve Brown and bassist PJ Farley were in the band Trixter, and drummer Joey Casado was in the band ZO2, which starred in the TV show Z-Rock. It also doesn't hurt that Steve Brown has played live shows as a member of Def Leppard, or that PJ Farley was in Lita Ford's band for years. I spoke with Steve Brown, PJ Farley, and singers Sherry Martirana and Scott Lovelady in the artist lounge of the ship, not only about Rubik's Cube, but also how they wound up on the Rock and Wrestling Rager. How did you guys first connect with Chris in the first place? Did you know some of the same people?
Yeah. It came down to, first off, Chris is a huge Trixter fan from back in the day, and one of our biggest supporters, you know, and a huge fan of our second record, which, you know, is kind of a cult classic now. A lot of people never heard it because it came out in the fall of 1992 when grunge had taken over and wiped out the whole 80s hard rock scene.
And ironically, the name of the record was Here.
Yeah, Here. No one heard it. But so fast forward in 2008 when we put the bands back together and when we put Trixter back together, Eddie Trunk, of course, who's another great friend of ours.
He's been on the podcast.
Yes, he has. He's a great guy, our Jersey brother. And so he was doing something with Chris, and we had, you know, we met Chris at NAMM a couple times, but never spent any time. And we just wound up, so Chris was doing Eddie's show, and then afterwards, it was kind of like, hey man, I want to hang out with the Trixter guys, and we wound up going to TGIF Fridays in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, and we had a great night. We had some drinks, and just it was like the beginning of the love fest that we have for each other. And then that spurred on 10 years later that we have this group chat now with Eric Martin from
He's
Mr.
on
Big.
it too, yeah.
It was a huge part of it. And it's really, the truth of it is that we talk to each other through that group text more than we talk to our best friends in the world, our wives, our girlfriends. It's
just on
true
fire
and
all day.
sad at the same time, but it's so much fun.
Okay, Savages mess up sometimes.
Well, I
too.
think this is the
So
ambience
Wrestling
right
Observer
here.
does not have
You hear that we're
Netflix.
actually on the
It's happening
cruise.
at 3:45. Sorry about that, guys. It's still going on in the Stardust Theater, deck 6 and 7 forward. Again, Wrestler Observer Live is happening at 3:45 in Stardust Theater. Bye, y'all.
But about how Joey met him is a little over 10 years ago when Joey and our bass player David Z, Rock and Roll Heaven, forever with us, and Pauly Z had their show Z-Rock on the IFC channel.
Yes.
And
yes.
Chris Jericho was a guest star on that show, and they became fast friends, and that was over 10 years ago, and that's how those guys became buddies. And then it's just serendipitous, that
6 degrees of separation, basically.
Yeah.
It was inevitable.
yes.
That we were meant to text each other constantly and break each other's balls.
Yes, a lot of ball
constantly.
breaking.
Well, there's one thing that I always say, and I say this to everybody, all my guys, and I say one thing: he's one of us, she's one of us. When I joined Rubik's Cube, I learned very early on that these people in this band, very special people, they're one of me, one of my kind. Like PJ and I have been playing together for 35 years. There's a bond, a brotherhood, and it's very hard to come into our circle, first off, without being able to take a lot of ball busting, because that's what we do. I mean, we're Jersey guys. That's what we do. So when I joined Rubik's, it was the same thing, because I immediately came in with this big personality, and they're an equally as big personality. Sherry, Scott, everybody, and all of us together. And now the fact that here we are on the Chris Jericho cruise, all of us together. Chris, Rubiks Cube, Trixter, Joey Casada and his nose.
Well, okay, there's the Jersey ball busting.
I love when Joey plays with us because I'm not the nose anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
PJ was always the guy. Who's that bass player? The guy with the blonde hair and the nose.
nose.
Yeah, but he gets back at him with the, Joey gets back at him with the hair jokes, because, Joey has hair.
Yeah.
Well, Scott hasn't gotten the chance to say anything, so kicking it to Scott. Who did you first know in this group?
That's rare.
That would have been Sherry. Who we met in karaoke, believe it or not. Rock and roll karaoke in New York back in the...
Very specifically, not regular karaoke.
Yes.
Live rock and roll
Live rock and roll
karaoke at the world
karaoke.
famous Arlene's Grocery.
Oh, yeah, on the Lower
Every
East
Monday
Side.
night, Music
Everybody
City.
knows about that.
Went on and on for years. I was in the band, like a co-host, backup singer. Scott was a regular, come down every week and bust out some Alice in Chains. And
Really?
It actually got me back into music, really. I had dipped out of it. I had disappeared for 10 years. I had walked away from it. It was like, well, I guess that was that. And I started coming down to that just because I couldn't stay away. Or I just found it's one of those things where you find yourself...
You just
doing-
said I stay away, and she said Alice in Chains. Was that an Alice in Chains
Oh,
reference
there
on
you go. Wow.
purpose?
Oh, you see what you did there?
Good one.
I didn't know if he
even
was
know
doing
it.
that on purpose.
didn't.
He catches them all.
It's a happy
How do you do that?
accident.
It's not just the jukebox directs that you have, but it's the encyclopedic knowledge that you've got.
Well, they don't pay me the big bucks for nothing here. So, so you said that
They pay you
Arlene's...
nothing? Is that what you said?
Maybe, maybe not. That's not the point here. The point is, you rediscovered music through doing karaoke at Arlene's Grocery.
Well, it was one of those things I started finding out that I just couldn't not show up anymore. It was, even though I thought I'd left it behind, that I was like, okay, well, it's just not going to be part of my life anymore. I just kept finding myself, it turned into church. It turned into having to show up every Monday night.
It's true. Every week there's a loyal following of great musicians. Some people who didn't sing at all, except for when they were there, and some people who, were Broadway singers and rock stars. Like, you never knew who was going to come in there. It was from celebrities to, the bank teller.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it was just everybody, and it was so organic and fun and special to see people just come in and unleash their inner rock star. And I wasn't even in a band before that, so that was like my first band.
So is this actually your first band besides the karaoke?
No, actually. The band from there, so Moby used to come in as like a regular, because he lived in the neighborhood.
He had
back then.
Teeny around the block or
Yes,
so?
exactly. He
Yeah.
had the Teeny. And he would come in and play guitar and not usually sing. He would bust out lead guitar on like Led Zeppelin tunes.
Really?
And one night said, hey, you want to sing Whole Lotta Love? And I'll play guitar. And he came up, and of course, so we rocked out Led Zeppelin. And he had his drummer with him, Aaron Brooks. And they talked to me after, and they said, hey, we're doing this other project, this side project. It's a band called The Little Death. It's an all original rock and blues. We have rock and blues. It's like Janis Joplin and meets Etta James. And we have this lead singer powerhouse, Laura Dawn. And we need 2 backup singers because everything's 3-part harmonies. We think you should come down and meet everyone. And at the time, I had a full-time job working for a board game company. So I was like, oh, well, like I'm not like a professional singer. And they're like, well, okay, we come here every week. We don't know what you're doing, but we call that singing. So why don't you come down and meet the band and audition? And so I did. And then I was in the band, and that was my first band. And my first gig was like after I got the gig 6 days later in Los Angeles. I was on a plane with Moby and Laura and Aaron and Darren, the whole band, and we were rocking out. So
wow.
So a year after that, we started Rubiks Cube. So.
And Rubiks Cube it's been 8 years or 10 years?
More, 13. 13. It'll be 13 this spring. Yeah.
And PJ, were you in the band before Steve?
No, the opposite actually.
Yeah.
Steve, been like 4 or 5 years before I joined.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I joined the band my first show. We're coming up on any day now, the 7-year anniversary. So I joined in February. First show was February of 2013. I actually joined the band on November 9th, 2012, the day my daughter Jade was born.
The day she was born.
This is a great story. Go tell him. Good.
Oh yeah, I call him because we were looking for a new guitar player, and we had done a gig with Trixter over the summer, and it was this gig. It was us, Trixter, Firehouse, and Warrant, and we saw Trixter, and they were the best band of the day, and they just crushed it. And I remember looking at Steve-O playing, I go, that's the guitar player we need to have in Rubiks Cube. And I said it to Eric, our tour manager, and he goes, yeah, right, dream on. And I go, well, I can dream. A few months later, we were in need of our lead guitar player, and I said, I'm going to call Steve Brown. Everyone's like, okay, good luck with that. And I go, well, it can't hurt. Right. If he doesn't want to do it, maybe he'll recommend us to somebody, you know? So I call him and we talk, and he's like, you know, this sounds pretty cool. I've seen you guys. You guys are all kick-ass. This could be good. This could be good. Yeah. And he seemed,
not kick-ass.
He seemed. That's right. Okay. Not kick-axe.
Right.
This could kick. By the way, those guys do kick-ass.
They're
kick
fantastic.
Ass.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you to Chris Jericho for introducing us to those guys.
Great guys.
Yeah, great guys. And so he seemed into it, and we're talking about different things about the band and whatever for about 35-40 minutes, and I hang up. I call the guys. I'm like, he's interested, and this is great. Everyone's like, no way. Everyone's excited. So Eric, our tour manager, is on. He looks up the Facebook page. He goes, I'm looking at Steve-O online right now on the Trixter page, and the band's saying congratulations to Steve and his family and his wife Cosette. They had a baby today. And I go, not today. I just got off the phone with him. He didn't say anything. I call him back. I'm like, hey, did you just have a baby? And he goes, oh yeah, this morning. Yeah, we had a baby. I'm like, wow, I just talked to you for 40 minutes.
That was this morning, though.
He goes, well, I was so excited about talking to you about joining Rubiks Cube. I forgot to mention I had a baby this morning, so it was pretty funny. Well, I go, he's a maniac. He's perfect for us already, I can tell. Yeah. There you go.
Just being the consummate professional, and no matter what, it's being a professional musician. For all you kids out there, no matter what the circumstance is, if somebody calls you regarding a gig or an opportunity, no matter where you are, and thank God nowadays, where I just got a text the other day for a gig. And it's like, hey man, you gotta make the phone call, and you gotta make it happen no matter where you are, and that's what I did. And 7 years later, and how many trips around the world? Wow. We're going to Singapore in April.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, this is just an incredible thing, and
we've been a lot of
it's
places.
just an incredible band and so much fun and great people.
We didn't just get a better guitar player by like a million times better, but better looking and
of course,
but funnier. And also, like he said, a member of our family, because it is definitely a family.
Oh yeah, I learned that within the first month of being in this band, and we are certainly the band family that we are. And again, when you spend, we do all spend more time with each other a lot of times than we do with our own families. I mean,
Right.
PJ and I have spent more time together than we have with our families, or for
Right.
sure.
30-something years.
Yeah,
That's
And the parallel we can draw is because like Trixter was such a tight band because we grew up together.
Yeah.
Right.
It was like getting into a band like this where it's that similar kind of camaraderie was very easy transition.
It's a Jersey thing.
Yeah, Jersey, New York, and just being good people. I mean,
Yeah.
we're good family people, and that's the way we treat our bands as if we're family, and we are, and that's really what resonates. And no matter what, not to say that we don't get on each other's nerves at times,
Right.
but at the end of the day, we're all able to have a laugh and give us a hug and a kiss, and it's all good, no matter what the problems are. And
It's kind of like the Brady Bunch too. Like two families came together. Like once I joined the band, it was like. You know, we completed the.
So who's
cube.
Alice?
The cube, the Brady Cube.
I think
Georgie.
Eric.
Georgie's
Alice.
Okay, he's neutral. So
Oh, he's gonna love that.
people who read up on Steve know that he's a notebook guy. He does everything by the notebook. Who else? You do the same thing as well, Sherry.
I'm a big note taker and I like crossing lists and using a pen and writing stuff. Yeah.
So how many songs would you estimate are in your rotation or playlist of Rubiks Cube?
Oh wow, a couple hundred. Every show is at least 24 songs, sometimes more. And there's some staples we always keep in the show, and then there's a good, I would say 10 or sometimes more that we switch around depending on where we are or the demographic, or if it's a private party, sometimes the client requests more rock than pop or vice versa. So yeah, we forget how many we know, and then we look at the list, and yeah, it's a few hundred. It's a lot.
The interesting thing about the music that we're doing, though, is that whenever we get requests for songs that we've never done, somehow we kind of already know them anyway. Because a lot of the music that we do is stuff. It's in our personal zeitgeist. It's in our, it's in the zeitgeist period. I've heard that song for so many years that I kind of know how it goes.
Osmosis.
I used to play it.
That song. I don't think I've ever actually sung this song out loud, but somehow I know it anyway.
It's a lot of the times I'll be like, oh, I used to play that with my other cover band, or I used to play that with the karaoke band, or but we just never played it together, and then we all get together and rock it out.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference also is that we're not late. We're not. How do I say this? The best way to say it. We lived it. We lived it.
We're not young.
We grew up in the 80s. We were there before MTV, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I was there the day MTV got turned on in Paramus, New Jersey. You know, when I saw a video killed the radio star.
Yep.
So
which you closed some of the shows with.
Of course, that's always. And that's the big difference, that it's not only that we're just doing this as a band and we're going to make money and be an 80s band, because there's a ton of those.
Right.
And we've all played with people who they've heard these songs and they play in bands and they've never heard this style of music before. Because we don't just do the 80s hard rock. We do every facet of the 80s.
There was some Michael Jackson and Billy Idol, and to say the least, that you guys are versatile.
Cover it all.
You cover all the damn bases here.
Yeah.
So,
tribute to the whole decade.
Damn good tribute. So 2 quick questions, and you are free to enjoy the rest of the Chris Jericho cruise.
And we're enjoying it right now,
we
man.
love this.
We love talking about ourselves.
You don't think we like to talk? No, we want to
Try and
talk
stop
more.
us.
Talking about ourselves.
Try
is
and
the
stop
best.
us.
Well, what can we say here? Well, the first question of the 2 is, for each of you, has there been a highlight of this cruise? Besides, rocking everyone's faces off.
Well, last night when Rich Ward of Fozzy and Chris Jericho joined us, that was pretty fun. And not just because Chris is the star of the cruise, but because, man, did you see his outfit? He was dressed like me. He was so into it. He just, and Rich, we had so much damn fun with those guys, and it's an exchange of energy that cannot be faked. It cannot be produced. And some people think they can just put on an 80s costume and sing 80s covers, and they're going to go out and be successful as us and, get all these big paying gigs. But it's not like that. You know, you got to really love it, and you got to, you know, let yourself go. And man, those guys, they're like badass rockers, but they were jumping around. Like Rich was playing Footloose with us, and we're just having a great time. Like that was really, really fun.
But before I find out everyone else's highlight, is Rich Ward always smiling that much all the time, or do you just bring that much out of him?
I mean, the guy does smile a lot.
He does.
I think he's but I think he was smiling extra hard. He had extra permagrin last night.
He's always smiling
really
when he's
did.
doing what he does.
Yeah,
you know, so.
and he was jumping around and loving it. Like, and afterwards he was just like, "Damn, that was great!" And it was, you could feel it on stage.
Yeah.
That's why, like, people say to us, "Why does it look, or how does it look like you guys are always having fun?" And I said, "Because we are. Like, we're always having fun, and we have just that gel together. We look at each other and make eye contact, and we just do."
It's real. It's as real as it gets.
Yeah.
It's real. So, any highlights that you guys can think of?
Steve got kissed by a sea lion.
I assume you mean in the Nassau, Bahamas region. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have one particular incident. This is my first cruise ever. So I'm like drinking it all in, literally for the first time, and figuratively. But I'm celebrating the whole thing.
And Scott, anything to add?
As far as the cruise itself, I mean, like personally, when we get to wander around in the Bahamas in some weird areas, which were really fun. But that's sort of like, you're talking about a vacation type of thing. There's always going to be something that it's not going to mean anything to anybody else. It's going to be some weird experience that you have. Which doesn't answer your question at all. But
good job.
It does. The cruise itself, I mean, I think the highlight was the moment that I sort of have that realization on stage about what I'm doing. There's always that moment when you're like just trying to get a show up, and it's like, particularly when you're doing something strange or unusual, like this is somewhat unusual for us to be doing an outdoor show on a moving ship, and the logistics of that, and then like the gale force winds and all, and you're just trying to get it done.
Right.
But then you have that moment right in the middle of the show where suddenly you're paying. It's like, I'm doing this. I'm doing this thing here. It's an amazing thing to be able to do, period.
Yeah.
So that happened for me about, I would say, during Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
I want to add, too, like, being on this cruise, I really don't know that much about wrestling. To me, I know some, wrestling from the 80s. Everything I know is, Hulk Hogan and Captain Lou Albano and all those guys. It was cool to see Jake the Snake. I was like, I know him.
Yeah. Iron Messiah.
I don't really know.
Ric Flair.
And of course, aside from our friend Chris Jericho, like, I'm not a wrestling expert or like know that much about it.
Yeah.
And on this cruise, I have been thoroughly entertained by the whole thing, and like just seeing the matches live, and I'm just seeing the speaking of wrestling crazy people, there's the Iron Messiah right there, the USWF over there.
Sherry's uncle.
You don't need a mic. He's all the way across the ship, everyone, but you can still hear him. Anyway, no, but like getting to watch a real match and being in the whole culture of this wrestling world for the first time, I didn't know what it was going to be like, and I've been having a really great time. And the fans are fun and such great people from all around the world, like just sweet, fun, wonderful people, and it's been a great time.
And Steve kind of touched on this before. I usually wrap every interview with saying, any last words for the kids? Any last words for the kids? Anything to add into this one?
Keep wearing spandex.
Okay.
And no underwear.
Spandex and no underwear.
Some people say spandex doesn't pay, but it really does.
Especially with no underwear.
Oh yeah. See.
Thanks so much for having us, man.
Paltrocast.
Next up is a quick interview with Lexie Nair. Fans of AEW should recognize her from her work in the AEW Control Center, and followers of Diamond Dallas Page's DDPY, they'll probably recognize Lexie from her work as a DDPY instructor. Keep an eye out for Lexie on more AEW programming and also DDPY programming in the future. What has been the highlight of your cruise so far?
Honestly, the highlight of the cruise so far, for me at least, was seeing Marco do his guest appearance on stage with Fozzy. That was amazing, watching him just take over the stage. He's a friend of mine as well, so of course I am a little biased, but it was incredible. It was awesome.
And is it going to be hard for you to get acclimated once you get home in beautiful Georgia?
Absolutely. I'm a little nervous for when I get back home, but honestly, I'm ready for the boat rocking to be over.
Right. And is there anything in the world that you could compare this cruise to?
Considering this is my first cruise, absolutely not. No, I don't know. I guess I have no idea what it would be comparable to. Like in general, what would it be comparable to?
Sure. Is it like any vacation in the world?
No, it's nothing like any vacation in the world. I mean, you're constantly busy. There's something going on, whether it's wrestling, music, or comedy, or just like it's super interactive, and you make so many friends on this cruise. And it's also because it brings everybody back for next year. So I'll be here next year.
Okay, see you in the AEW Control Center.
Thank you.
Paltrocast.
Last, but definitely not least, is my interview with Kick-Axe drummer Bryan Gilstrom and Kick-Axe guitarist Larry Gilstrom. Kick-Axe was reportedly Chris Jericho's favorite band in high school, and he let that be known throughout the cruise, performing with its members on more than one occasion. In the last hours of the cruise, I approached Bryan and Larry for a quick interview, and they kindly agreed. Here's our chat, and hopefully the great reception Kick-Axe received will lead the group to doing more touring in the near future. For you guys, what was the highlight of the cruise?
Probably fighting Chris Jericho last night. It was a lot of fun.
I don't know if that was a highlight or a low light, but
no, it was a lot of fun. It was all good times, you know. And and what a beautiful human being that guy is. You know, he really is the guy. You know, he actually is that nice.
Yeah. So for me, the highlight was the first show in the atrium and Chris coming up and singing Road to Rock with us. It was so much fun.
Exceptional singer, too.
Because it was the first show, we still had tons of energy.
Right.
You got a 4-day cruise. By the time you're at the end, you're like you're running out. But you know, it's like one full fucking day. There's no sleeping.
It's just been one constant party for 4 days, you know. I'm going to sleep when I get back to Vancouver.
And I would imagine that this is the first cruise that Kick-Axe has played?
It is. And Chris wants me to go up and wrestle him again tonight, so it's almost 2 o'clock and I got to go up and wrestle him again.
I found amazing on this cruise is that every single person on this cruise is an awesome person.
Yeah, what's like that?
Well, Danny said there is no dickheads on this boat.
No, everybody.
The wrestling heavy metal overlap is pretty exceptional, you have to say.
Yeah, there's no.
It is. It feels like it just fits.
So will there eventually be a Kick-Axe documentary of some sort?
Probably eventually. Oh, another thing, the cruise. Like Mike here, the whole crew, so professional on this boat. It's just unbelievable. The first night we said, hey, we want to keep you guys, and I said, don't worry about it. We're all good.
What we want to do is we want to do another, like at least like 5-6 song kind of EP with Danny, because Danny has not actually sang on any recording with us yet. And he's been in the band for 10 fucking years.
Right, he's so good. Yeah.
And
I love the guy.
He's our brother. We gotta have something set in stone with him.
And I love how adaptable covers were. That Green Man Unleash You Tonight, you did a Zeppelin deep cut the night before.
4 Sticks.
Yeah, you did 4 Sticks.
That's the hardest song.
You did not play with 4 drumsticks, but it's okay. It's forgivable.
Oh yeah, that'd be a bitch. I don't think
there's a reason why Led Zeppelin never plays that song live.
They disbanded. I heard they played it once and they fucked it up, so they never played it again.
In closing, any last words for the kids?
The kids?
Come on back next year. Come on, let's go. We're going to be back here.
Keep being a kid. I'm still a kid.
Don't ever grow up.
Don't ever grow up.
If you grow up, you'll get gray hair, fucking wrinkles, and you'll die.
Don't grow up.
Don't grow up. Just fucking keep having fun.
Paltrocast.
Thanks for listening to the Paltrocast with Darren Paltrowitz, as produced by puregrainaudio.com. Theme song by Steve Schiltz. Audio mixed by Mark Piro. Until next time, have a great Shabbos.